Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Matter of the Heart podcast, where we bring you heartfelt, educational, and inspiring stories, all to elevate your spirit. I am your host, Carol Olivia, and always thank you so much for taking your time out to listen, and in this case, watch the Matter of the Heart podcast. The topic of the show is crystals and gemstones, and I'm sure we're all aware, some of us have crystals in our home. Some of us are simply drawn to a crystal or a gemstone when we go into a store. And the interesting thing is we don't know why, just like we're drawn to a color. The guest of the show is Laurelle Rethke. She is stone medicine woman, vibrational healing therapist, spiritual alchemist, certified master of crystallology, and you can certainly see her background as I say that's amazing. Certified master of essential oils, energy healer, using the Barbara Brennan method as well as other methods. She's also a Western astrologer, and she has an upcoming book coming up, in a couple of months, Laurelle? In a couple of months?
December 8th, I believe, is the release date.
Okay. Connecting with crystals. So we have such a beautiful, beautiful background, Laurelle. It's there's no words to say what it is. So if you can maybe you'll be our tour guide.
Okay. You want me to show you around the shop just a little?
Yes, I think that would be terrific.
Okay. So up here, I have a lot of purple stones. All of them are amethysts. There are different varieties. This is a special variety called spirit quartz, and there's a lot of little tiny crystals coming off of the points that make these extra shimmery and very cleansing for our energy field. But all amethysts are really wonderful for calming the mind and bringing spirit more into the body, into our everyday lives. Then I have some mica lepidolite here, and some celestite, the blue stones, and some beautiful azurites. And then I have a whole row here of various colors of calcites, from cobaltine calcite to mangano, a rose color, green, apple greens, blues, reds. The oranges are under here. And then more stones that you can't see as well down there. But then I have some rose quartz up here, and a clear or a snow quartz geode cluster here. Another rose quartz point, and some selenites. Selenites way over here as well in the corner. These white sticks are selenites. And then I have a whole row of optical calcites in the front, which you probably can hardly see because they're so clear, but they have light color to them, lavender. And okay, these are all back here. These are all fluorites. And in front, these are all beryls, morganite and goshenite, which are the pink and clear varieties of beryls. The green variety of beryl is emerald, and the aqua colored variety of beryl, which I forgot to mention over here, is aquamarine. But less known colors are the morganite, which is a beautiful light pink, which you can't see the color so well here. And then the clear is goshenite. And then some tourmalines through here, some more rose quartz here, some beautiful green garnets here, euvorovite. They're small, but they're so precious and they sparkle like crazy. Some raw rhodonite, large pieces of rhodonite. We're used to seeing the polished pieces more often, so these are kind of cool. And then everything else is just sort of mixed, I guess. Actually, I can show you down here. These are some more calcites in that yellow-orange color, and then some red quartz or hematite in quartz pieces. some more of these spirit quartz, but this time it has a golden shimmer on the spirit quartz, giving it this, it's a iron coating that gives this golden shimmer to it, a little more rare than the amethyst spirit quartz, but really, so really precious. And some heat treated citrine back here. And let's see, can you see lots of pyrites over there? So a lot of different variety here and plenty that you can't see as well.
That's amazing. No, so how many do you have in your office?
Well, I would say in the shop itself,
In the shop.
probably, I'm just going to guess, around 2,000 pieces. That's a real guess, but maybe 1,500 to 2,000. Oh no, probably 2,000. And then in my healing collection, I have a whole healing collection, which I've never shown you before, but that would be an interesting thing to do sometime.
That would be very
I have more precious and very special stones in there that I use for my clients when I do crystal healing work.
So,
and that's probably another. Oh, that's probably another. That's probably another 1,000 to 1,000 stones or so.
Amazing. So I'm presuming you picked each stone.
I did. Handpicked most of them.
So what drew you to pick? Was it an energy that popped out of the stone, the color, the texture? What do you look for? And maybe we can learn from you when we go into a metaphysical shop such as yours in New York City and learn.
Yeah, the thing that draws me in the most usually is color. I have a real affinity for finding stones that have the most vibrant colors that you can find in that particular variety. Not to say that there aren't amazing stones that have less color, and some people are more drawn to the pastels over the more vibrant colors, but as long as the color is good, I usually go for those stones the most. You know, because I work with crystals mainly for doing healing therapies, color is part of what I'm looking for that healing aspect. The most vibrant color matches the color of that particular chakra or energy that I'm trying to bring in.
Wow.
So color, just aesthetics. Like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm very visual. So I like to find nice aesthetics. If it's a weird shape, it doesn't draw me quite as much as shapes that sort of have some sort of almost design to them, because really this is nature art, you know, very healing nature art with vibrant color frequencies that definitely bring part of the healing aspect of the stone, along with the minerals inside and the crystalline structure. This is all part of what makes them healing. So I go for the stones that feel the most healing, feel the most vibrant in that regard, or the most clear, you know, when you're looking at a clear stone. But it's good to have stones that aren't always super clear, because part of the process of working with a stone is you evolve as the stone evolves, and a stone that isn't so clear can become more clear over time if you're working with it consistently.
Oh, that's very interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm presuming, you know, sometimes we go into shops and we see a stone that's very polished.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have any energy, healing energy?
Oh, sure. Some people are drawn to the really raw stones more. Let's see, let me get a larger piece. This is a raw stone. It's really remarkable in the color because it's this cobalt that's giving the color, which in rocks turns out to be pink. But it's on a matrix, right? It's on the mother rock. And so this is a raw natural stone. And some people really prefer this because they can feel the energy more palpably. Other people, however, are drawn to stones that are more polished. So I can use this polished rose quartz as an example, which it's hard to see the color on, but this is raw on the bottom, but it's been sliced off at the bottom so it stands nicely, and it's been polished along the sides so that it comes to a beautiful point. And some people are more drawn to this, and it just depends on what we're working through or what we're working on. If we need to feel that raw energy more palpably, then that's what we'll be drawn to. If we're working on becoming more polished, or we are an incredibly polished person and we're just looking to connect with the stones, then that person's going to prefer perhaps a more polished piece. So it really just depends on your personality type and what calls to you. And that is always what's most important. It doesn't matter if it's polished or if it's raw. If it speaks to you, then that's the stone you should go for.
Now, I can't help but think, Laurelle,
Yeah.
you have so many stones in back of you.
Uh-huh.
Does one speak more? I mean, they all have energy.
Yeah.
Does one speak more? I mean, I can't, this is like an orchestra, a symphony, a symphony of nature.
Well, different stones speak more at different times because they adjust to the energy that's around them.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going through something particular, one stone will speak to me more than another. But if I'm going through the opposite thing later, then it's going to be a different stone. And the same thing happens actually when people come to shop. A lot of times I'll have a stone in the shop that's been here for a few years, and I think it's just beautiful, but no one buys it. And I'm like, I don't get it. And it's like the energy is dampened down when people come by. And then the right person walks in the door for that particular crystal, and the energy just shines super bright, and they almost beeline to that crystal and pick it up and buy it because the energy shifts and changes. So it really just depends on what we're going through each day or month or year, what stone is going to be maybe most prevalent for us, or just someone's energy and what they're most drawn to, what they most need at that time. Those stones will shine a little bit brighter, which is why when you go to a shop, if you're not sure what to get, just quiet yourself, quiet your mind, quiet yourself just for a minute, breathe, feel your connection to the earth, and then just look around and see what captures your attention. Because what captures your attention is the stone for you to have right then. And it could be a stone that stays with you for years and it's your piece and you have this deep, deep connection to it. Or it could be a stone that you have for you that you work with intensely for 6 months to a year, and then it's sitting on your shelf holding that space of what it helped you to bring in until maybe 3 years later when you're suddenly like, oh, I need that stone again. So they really do shift and support us as we need to be supported. And yet all of them are, or most of them are somewhat protective. All of them are somewhat calming to the body. Even if they're activating, it's usually a balancing effect. They'll give us more energy and sort of calm down what's too much. So most stones all the stones that you'll find in a shop in general are going to be very healing and soothing for the body.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Or our energy, our emotions,
Okay.
our mind, our spiritual connection.
Right. Right. So as we're transforming,
Yes.
another stone might speak to us more than another.
Yes.
All right. So we have a stone. We buy a stone. What do we do with it?
Whatever calls you.
Okay.
A lot of people will meditate with them, or they'll put them on their altar or their bedside table or their bookshelf to look at. But a lot of people will meditate with them, or they'll put it in their lap when they're reading a book, or when they're relaxing, when they're listening to music. They'll sleep with their stones. Some people take baths with their stones. Some people put stones into, certain stones you can put into drinking water to remineralize the water. So it just depends, and you need to do a little research on the gem waters before you start doing it, but it just depends. I know a lot of people who actually use them in art. A lot of people make jewelry with them, which in making the jewelry or making the art, you have that time where you're working with that stone and connecting with the energy of that stone, and then you create something beautiful that you have beyond just your time working with it. So it really just depends on what calls to you. A lot of people carry them in their pockets or their bags when they go out. It just depends on what you feel called to do.
So, can it lose its power? In other words, do we need to recharge it just like a battery? You know, sometimes. I mean, I'm presuming it can lose its power, but you're the expert, not me.
Well, there's a little bit of sort of on that one. I
Okay.
don't think a stone ever truly loses its power. It still has the same minerals inside of it, and it still has the same crystalline structure within it. I suppose if you soak them in water for a long time, and it pulls the minerals out, or if you soak it in salt water, it can pull the minerals out that create the color, and it will lose some of what it had in that regard, but perhaps it will bring something else new in. If you leave them like fluorites, if you leave these beautiful fluorites, and they come in many colors, in the sun, in direct sunlight for a too long a period of time, they'll start to fade color as well, and so will the amethyst and the rose quartz. Any of the quartzes, the natural citrines, and also the smoky quartz, if you leave them in direct sunlight, they will also fade. So the crystalline structure is always going to be there, and that is part of the medicine. If the color gets dampened for some reason, then that's going to shift the medicine because the color vibration is different. But those are the only times I could say that you're really damaging the crystal. Now, some people, it is good to cleanse them. If you've worked intently with a stone for a period of time, then it's always good to cleanse it. And you can do that in so many ways. You can, if it's a stone that's not going to melt or disintegrate in water, you can run it under water quickly, or even leave some things like these optical calcites. A great way to cleanse and recharge these is to leave them under running water for 5 minutes. But you sort of have to do a little research to know. I prefer to just use sage or energy and intention, because these are easy ways to cleanse the crystals and myself at the same time in regards with the sage and the energy. And because that's part of what you're doing. You're not only cleansing and recharging the crystal, you're cleansing and recharging yourself. I mean, we essentially are a crystal. We have many crystals within us. We have apatite in our bones, which looks sort of like this.
Well,
And magnetite, which is a silvery gray. Yeah,
right.
this is a deep blue apatite. It comes in other colors. And I don't know what color it is in our bones, but I'm assuming tan. But they're magnetite, which is a dark gray silver stone. Magnetite is in the brain. We have these minerals all throughout our body. And so when we're cleansing the crystals, we're cleansing ourselves as well, including our emotional energy, our mental energy, the physical body when we do this. So cleansing and recharging at the same time is always good.
Wow. So obviously you have an infinite passion. What stimulated you to get involved with it? What attracted you? Was it
Yeah.
a specific crystal or gemstone, and then that triggered off more, you know?
I honestly don't know. I was in a career transition, and I knew I wanted to go back in more fully into my metaphysical and healing studies. And I've always been a very spiritual person, and people have come to me asking me questions all my life about things like this. So it just felt right. And one day, I was at the New Life Expo and wondering what I was going to do, and I came across a table of crystals. And I had my friend hold on a minute while I looked at every single crystal on that table. And as soon as I finished that, I popped back up and walked again, chatting with my friend until the next crystal table. And I suddenly realized by the end of the fair, I devoured like 7 or 8 different crystal tables. And I was like, maybe there's something here. And interestingly, I always tell that story, but I never think to say, one of my very, very dear friends gave me a clear quartz, large clear quartz pebble for one of my birthdays. And when I received that crystal, even though I'd worn crystals in college and had them around, worked them with a little bit, I'd sort of left it behind for a few years. And when he gave it to me, I thought, what am I supposed to do with this? And within a few years, all of this had started. So I almost feel like that was my seed crystal that one of my best friends gave me. And it opened me to all of the magic of the crystal kingdom in a larger way. But it's also why I know Western astrology and studied meditation and healing modalities, because I was sort of looking into everything and studying a lot of different things that interested me on my journey to crystals sort of being the largest, the thing that takes up most of my time and that I talk the most about and teach the most about.
That's fascinating. So you have so many there. So and you don't necessarily feel all of their energies at the same time. Okay, and then I mean, because you have so many in your shop, do you cleanse all of them at the same time? Or I mean, I'm
Well,
trying to do this.
yeah, because I have so many, and this
Right.
happens to a lot of people who suddenly get into crystals. You have a lot of them. You're like, how do I clean them all? That's why I use sage. I
Okay.
just take the sage and run it all around, or I do energy work. I'll just see sunlight come down through my space and I'll clear it out on both sides, which was a technique another really good friend taught me in my 20s, just for, cleansing and clearing energetically. So I use one of those two techniques, the sage or the energy cleansing, or I just ask the stones to cleanse. And because I've done this for a long time and I'm really sure of my intention and making it so, then it is done. That's all we need to cleanse anything energetically is the intention, the will, and the fact that that it is done, because you already have that connection. Once you've worked long enough spiritually or energetically, you create a stronger connection, and you can just ask the crystals to cleanse and it's done.
Now I'm curious. If you ask a crystal a question, is it possible that response could be channeled?
Yes. Oh, yes. A lot of crystal books. In fact, part of my crystal book is channeled information. That's one of the great things about meditating with crystals and stones, is because taking that time, really getting to know that one crystal, can bring you a lot of information just in the way it feels. And we've done meditations before, the crystal meditation, where you sort of feel how it feels in your hand physically, but then you feel the energy of the stone come into your body, and you just notice, how does it move? What does it look like? Is it colorful? Does it have a lot of patterns? Does it flow and morph? That's part of the energy of how the stone works. And then you can have a conversation with the crystal, just introduce yourself to the crystal, and you can say, oh, I picked you up to meditate today because of this reason. And then you can ask the crystal if there's some reason it wants to work with you today, or if it has some message for you, or if it can connect you to a certain energy that you're trying to bring in. You can have long conversations with crystals. And the thing is, a lot of people, when they first start, are like, well, how do I know that's just not my imagination? And my answer to that is, of all the millions of things that you could be imagining right at that time, why is this what came through? It's a deeper innate connection that we have that we don't necessarily realize. It's not something that we're taught in school. So learning to open to those subtle energies, realizing that you can use a crystal as divination or asking questions just as easily as you can channel information using the tarot or just by pure connection. Crystals magnify energy. They, many of them are piezoelectric or piezoelectric and pyroelectric. That means with heat and pressure, they create an electrical pulse. So and quartz is one of those stones. Tourmaline and quartz are the two main stones that are both piezo and pyroelectric. So quartz is in about, okay, I'm going to guess here, but it's around 80% of the stones that you find have quartz in them. So all of those are going to be protective. All of those are going to increase energy in some aspect, although it's harmonizing, it increases energy. So working with crystals gives us more energy to connect more palpably when we meditate or when we try to connect with spirit in some way. So that's why a lot of channels and people who work in the psychic arts will have crystals and use crystals, because it magnifies that connection that they already have and have learned to utilize to make a clearer channel.
That makes sense. Wow. So it's kind of like a friend. I mean,
Yes, yes, it really
I
is.
love you,
I used
but
to sing to my crystals all the time. If I was
uh-huh.
leaving, I'd be like, bye, see you guys later. Because there is such an emotional connection that can come. Because, you know, this isn't, a lot of people think, oh, it's a rock, it's an inanimate object. And in some sense, I suppose they're right. They certainly don't have the same kind of consciousness that you and I have, or we're used to relating to, but they definitely have their own consciousness. Crystals evolve, like I said earlier, just like we do. So in that evolution is a kind of consciousness, a kind of understanding. For instance, the Native American tribes, say the Stone people, they are one of the tribes that exists. The Stone people, the four-legged, the winged ones, the
Yeah.
two-legged. So they definitely, and certainly not only them, alchemists and others, all throughout the ancient world saw a consciousness in stones. And I think that's because they were more connected to nature than we are today. And when you're connected to nature in this deeper way, it doesn't seem so odd. They had a
Right.
connection with the subtle energies all around them in a more palpable way, and they could feel it. It's just like kids. When kids see crystals and rocks, they love them. They run right up to them. They can feel their energy. They don't know it, but they're responding to the energy of the stones. And so as we grow up, we sometimes lose some of that, but we can easily access it again just by bringing them into our lives and starting to work with them. Once you get to know them, then they become like a friend. They help you, and there's a deep emotional connection that can come with that.
Mm. So I'm picking up the indigenous cultures might be more, not probably are more connected to them because they're more connected to nature.
Yeah.
And children are very more intuitive a lot of times than adults.
Mm-hmm.
So they're picking up the energy of that stone as well. That's fascinating to me because the indigenous people have their own very natural type of culture. And certainly crystals and gemstones are part of it. And they may do they have ceremonies with them?
Yes. You know, throughout the ancient world, they were made into carvings that were considered a spiritual connection for many of them. Sometimes, you know, in the shapes of various animals. They were made into jewelry. They were often put on things like pipes and other things that were considered sacred in many ancient cultures. So all over the world, every ancient culture you can think of was utilizing gemstones. And we have a lot of documentation on that too. Classical Chinese medicine used gemstones. Ancient Egypt, ancient Sumeria, in Greece and Rome, in India, in Ayurveda. It's a huge thing with Vedic astrology, wearing certain stones against the skin on various fingers to bring in certain energies, all throughout Mesoamerica. So, you know, everyone has used them throughout time. All of the cultures have used them throughout time. And we're the ones who sort of left it behind for a little bit while we went into different forms of technologies. But now there's a huge explosion because people want that connection again. We've gotten far enough away from nature that we're trying to find our way back to it, because intuitively, we still know how important it is to have bits of nature in our life. you know, outside, uh, there is a 70% negative ions, 30% positive ions. So positive ions are what come off of your computer, your TV, your refrigerator, and this is more caustic to our energy. And negative ions are what it feels like after it rains. But so being outside, we just feel better because there's more of these negative ions that are very beneficial for us. Inside, it's the opposite. It's only 30% positive, 30% negative ions and 70% of the positive ones. So if you bring plants into your space or crystals or even bits of wood and pine cones, things like that, that all helps to bring more of those calming negative ions into our indoor space. Running water, things like that.
That makes a lot of sense. And keep
Yeah.
the air as clean as possible.
Yes,
No
exactly.
chemical cleansing supplies. If that doesn't even make sense. Chemical cleansing, that doesn't make sense, if you know what I'm saying. The play on words with that, Laurelle. We all,
Or at
unfortunately,
least modern chemicals.
what is that?
At least modern chemicals.
Yes.
There's some natural chemicals that happen organically that aren't quite as bad, and some of them are worse. But you know, these modern chemicals, a lot of them are synthetic, so it's not as conducive to our body.
Definitely. Well, we only have a couple of minutes. What would you like to tell the people, Laurelle?
If you haven't ever experimented with gemstones, I highly recommend, even if you have trouble believing any of this that we've spoken about, just pick up a stone that calls to you, even if it's a rock that you find outside. You know, a lot of us, when we go to different locations, we'll pick up a stone from that location to bring that energy back with us. It's an intuitive, natural thing that many, many people do. So even if it's picking up some rock that just captures your eye at the beach or in the forest when you're hiking or at a rock shop, just pick it up, put it in your pocket, carry it with you for a month, and just notice what feels different to you while you're carrying it. Is anything easier for you? Is anything harder? Is it bringing up something that you need to release? Or just calm and soothe you and keep you grounded? Just notice the differences. It can be subtle, but there's a huge difference between being at the beach versus being in the center of Times Square. And we all sort of have an idea of what that feels like, or being in the middle of a big city, right? Very different energies. So bringing a stone into your life, into your pocket when you're walking around wherever you live, it'll be more subtle than that. But eventually you'll start to learn it. You'll start to understand it. You'll start to have a deeper connection with yourself, a deeper connection with the natural world. And it can be very empowering to work with the crystals because we start to learn so much about ourselves by studying this bit of nature.
Well, you obviously have an extreme passion for it. I mean, you know, and the show is only a half hour, but you certainly could talk for 24 hours.
And I have.
And you have. I believe it. No question.
I teach crystal healing certifications, and those courses, well, I guess they're only 18 to 20 hours, but close to 24 hours over a few days.
Wow. Thank you so much, Laurelle Rethke.
You're so welcome. It's so nice to see you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And you've been listening to The Matter of the Heart, and that is Miss Laurelle Rethke. She is Stone Medicine Woman, coming out with a book, certainly on gemstones and crystals. I'm looking for the title again of the book, Laurelle.
Connecting with crystals.
With crystals.
Connecting with crystals.
And if you want to know anything A to Z, that certainly is the book to navigate and to explore. Thank you, Laurelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you've been listening to The Matter of the Heart. I've been your host, Carol Olivia.